Welcome, everybody, to a special post-game edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. I'm your host, Art Stapleton. We are recording this in one of the coaches' booths in the press box at Highmark Stadium here in Orchard Park. Preseason game number 1 in the books. The New York Giants beat the Buffalo Bills. Nobody cares about the score, right? It doesn't matter. What matters is Jackson Dart and a whole lot of other things to like about what the Giants did here against the Bills. Now, granted, it is only the preseason. We understand that. But if we're going to overreact on things that happen in the preseason that are negative, you might as well highlight the positives as well. And at the top of the list, it's Jackson Dart. So we'll get into that. I'll give you some names of some other guys that I thought had good days. Then I'll give you a feeling of what the locker room felt like overall. You know what? Let's start there. We had Jackson Dart at his locker. The only podium was Brian Daboll after this one. So it was a little cramped, I think, hanging over a garbage can by a cooler, trying to get Jackson Dart. But I was able to get close enough, obviously, to ask Jackson questions. And the biggest thing that came from Brian Daboll is that when he was praising Jackson to himself, he said that Jackson called his performance mid. Now, all the kids out there know what mid means. For someone of my age, I've kind of caught on a little bit, thank you to my nephews who have kind of filled me in. But mid is meh. That's pretty much what it is. And Jackson Dart, a little hard on himself, critical on himself. But look, I think the biggest thing for Jackson Dart right now and why you want to be optimistic is that go back to what Brandon Brown said in the spring about Abdul Carter. And he said to an extent Jackson Dart. He said you get excited about players when you scout them and you give your scouting report. You see them on the practice field in college. Then you watch their college tape. You see what they see. Then they go through the all-star process or the combine. And you start cranking their tape. And you see things, the instincts that they play with. For Jackson Dart, the awareness in the pocket, the willingness to stand in there and make a throw and take a hit, which he did today. For Abdul Carter to move the way he does, to kind of pick his spots. Like I used an analogy in my column about Carter, and I will continue to do so. When they give him the freedom to kind of stalk the offensive line, like a lion looking for its prey, you know, that is instinctive. He knows where to get and how quickly he can get and beat a guy. Carter did today, and we'll get to his performance in a little bit. So as much as Jackson Dart said he was mid, and the reality is that it is only one game, when you see those things and you can draw a line from what you saw at Ole Miss to what you saw through your scouting process, to what you saw in rookie minicamp and OTAs and now in training camp, and now he steps on the field in a preseason game, and you see those same qualities standing out. That's why you feel good about a player and you feel good about where Jackson Dart's development is. So let's get into it a little bit. Jackson Dart, 12 of 19, 154 yards, a touchdown. He had 3 runs for 24 yards. Of course, he had that long scramble that really made a difference in one of those drives. You know, but I think the plays that won't get written about, or at least won't get talked about, I'm going to write about them because they impressed me. Let's go to the touchdown pass first. 29-yard touchdown, put it exactly where it needed to be. Little Jordan Humphrey and scores the touchdown. The best thing about that play is that Jackson Dart still, as of about a half hour ago, had not even seen the play yet because he took a wallop from TJ Sanders, the defensive tackle for the Buffalo Bills, their second-string defensive tackle, rookie, South Carolina. He's a guy who I liked during the draft process, maybe ended up with the Giants. He's actually with the Bills. And Jackson Dart laughed because of that SEC rivalry a little bit. And he said, you know, I've been hit by TJ Sanders enough through the years. And then he took the shot and unleashed a great ball, like I said, to Humphrey. But Jackson Dart didn't even see the completion of the play. he essentially heard it because his teammates were running around and going to celebrate with Humphrey. He was on the ground because he took a shot from Sanders. Sanders is over 300 pounds. So that's the kind of thing that Jackson Dart did at Ole Miss that earned the respect of his teammates, standing in there, standing in the pocket. Now, you have to be smart about it. You don't want to take those hits. But if you're going to take that hit, you better throw the touchdown, and he did. So as of this recording, Jackson Dart still had not seen a replay of that touchdown. They're not putting that replay up on the big board here at Highmark to show Jackson Dart's first touchdown pass. But it's good. And, it's kind of funny because last night you started hearing the simmering, seeing it on social media that Shedeur Sanders was doing what he was doing for Cleveland, and he was buzzing, and he was throwing 2 touchdowns, and there were actually some shots at the Giants from some reporters out there that, it was almost like, you're watching this, Giants, this is what you passed up on Shedeur Sanders, which is completely unfair. And as we've talked about, we know why the Giants passed on Shedeur Sanders. They like Jackson Dart better as a prospect. They thought he fit better in their offense, and they liked his intangibles more than they did Shedeur. Now, the entire league agreed with it. I like Shedeur, so I'm not here to slam Shedeur Sanders. But that was the feeling last night. It was a Friday night. Preseason football is going on. You can bet that Jackson Dart, even though he won't admit it, he heard about the Shedeur Sanders stuff. Now, it's not about comparison. We make the comparisons. But for the NFL, in reality, if Shedeur Sanders did what he did last night and then Jackson Dart came out today and did not have a good game, it would have been overreaction city in terms of where they're at, what the Giants, why did they pass on Shedeur? As I need to take a little bit of a drink off camera here. Hopefully we didn't give too much advertising to our friends at Pepsi. But if they'd like to sponsor All In with Art Stapleton, you can email me, stapleton@northjersey.com, and I'll get those requests to the proper people. But anyway, I think when you look at what Jackson Dart did, it was the little things that built into the big things. I really liked his pocket awareness. There was a play that he eluded a free rusher early on and completed a pass to to Greg Dulcich. He completed the pass to Greg Dulcich, and it was one of those things where it was like, it went for no gain. But the thing about Jackson Dart is that there were no negative plays. And I think that was important. The Giants had a quarterback who made negative plays last season. And it's not slam Daniel Jones season. But that is the reality, is that this offense had negative plays from their quarterback. They gave up 0 sacks today, offensive line across the board for 4 different quarterbacks, 4 different styles. And the fact that Jackson Dart made that completion to Greg Dulcich just for no gain, he gets hit, you risk injury, in that situation. So that was a play I liked. There was a play to Montrell Washington, who had a couple tough catches that he dropped, or else Dart's numbers would have even been better. Were those two, and then Dart had a little bit of an in cut up the seam to, I think it was Dulcich, and for some reason he ducked on the play. I don't know if he lost sight of the ball, but we are sitting in the end zone here at Highmark, so we get a different angle than the TV booths that are really midfield. So I was told that on TV, the replays, they said it was a bad ball from Jackson Dart. It was not a bad ball from Jackson Dart. It was right on the money. He threw the receiver open, and for whatever reason, Dulcich ducked down. He lost the ball. That's why it was a completion. But there was a play to Montrell Washington that I thought was great. Dart kind of moved in the pocket, shuffled to the side, changed his arm angle, hit Washington coming across the middle, almost like on a skinny post to the seam. I thought that was a good play. He also had a play on 3rd down when he read the rush and just put the right amount of touch over several oncoming defenders to Turbo Miller. who used the burst to get outside, and they ended up moving the sticks and getting the first down. Again, a lot to like about Jackson Dart. I think his instincts, the way he's refusing to just kind of be happy about it. I mentioned that Washington play. One of them he dropped, caused a field goal attempt that Graham Gano. Hey, how about the old man? Graham Gano, 3 field goals today, all beyond 50 yards. So you got to feel good about Graham Gano, who is obviously aware. He's aware of his age, 38 years old. He's aware that, he's got a big cap number. Not that the Giants are looking to bail from Graham Gano, because they would have already if they needed the cap space. At this point, with what Graham has dealt with and injury-wise the last 2 years, I think that had to feel really good for Graham and what he was able to accomplish today with 3 50-yard plus field goals. I think it was 51, 50, and 53 for Graham Gano. But again, back to Jackson Dart. You move on now. I don't think there's any difference. Let's go to the morning. We had the exclusive story that Russell Wilson was going to start today. That was counter to what seemingly every other report had said. And last night I got the tip. We ended up posting it on NorthJersey.com. So appreciate everyone who kind of gave us a tip of the cap for that and respected the journalism process. So again, it's always appreciated because it stares out and it's glaring when it doesn't happen. But Russell Wilson, 12 plays on the first drive. They get a field goal from Graham Gano. Then it was Dart time, and Dart finished the half. Again, a lot to like about Jackson Dart, and now you move forward. Hopefully by now he's seen a replay of his touchdown pass, and then we go into the Jets joint practices starting on Tuesday in Florham Park. All right, a couple other quick hitters as we move here. First team defense, 2 series, thought they played very well. I thought there was a lot of pressure up front. I thought Roy Robertson-Harris, even though he got flagged for roughing the passer, I thought he was more active today than he's been all of training camp. So that's a good sign. Maybe Roy Robertson-Harris turns it up in games. Haven't seen him in practice really turn it up, but maybe that's a relatively young veteran turning it up now in games. So that's good to see. Got to go to Abdul Carter. He had 6 snaps, 3 in pass rush situations, 3 quarterback pressures. And that was against the first team offensive line of the Buffalo Bills. He lined up inside on the interior for 1 play, completely beat the guard, clean, got in, ball got away. But, just to see Carter do that now in the game, it's like Jackson Dart, another step towards where you want to be. Carter also had a couple rushes and a couple pressures going against Deion Dawkins, left tackle, pretty good player in this league. So Abdul Carter, I'll have a column on him going into Tuesday for the Jets. He talked after the game today in the locker room, just happy to be playing football again, playing real football, wishes he had more reps in this game, understood why he didn't. I think we all understood why he didn't. There are bigger things ahead for Abdul Carter. I think for his game to be as impressive as he was today, it was really more athleticism and his traits, because as Brian Burns said, now as I'll have in the column on Carter for Tuesday, is that what he likes most about Abdul Carter is how he sets up offensive linemen, and it's a game for him. It's a chess match. And in 6 snaps, 3 pass rush snaps, you don't really have a chance to set things up. So I think Carter put on tape what he wanted to put on tape. Again, no reason to think that the arrow is not sky high for Abdul Carter, number 3 overall pick from Penn State. Another guy who stood out, another rookie, Marcus Bowe. I liked him a lot today, and I think the best thing you could say about Marcus Bowe, I know Joe Shane said it on the NBC broadcast, was that you didn't hear from him today. You didn't hear Bowe's name at all. He started out right tackle when Dart came into the game, when the first team offensive line left the game. He was at right tackle. Then he flipped over to left tackle. and Stone Forsythe came in at right tackle. Then later in the game, he went back to right tackle, and Josh Azudu came in at left tackle. And I thought Azudu played pretty well today. Not breaking down the film, but I thought Azudu was a step forward for him. But again, Marcus Bowe, there have been incremental steps, and he's not doing it with the fanfare of Jackson Dart and Abdul Carter. But I think Bowe has shown you a lot to like, especially now. The big story this week to me is how much closer is Andrew Thomas to getting off the PUP list. Because I got the sense that they're ready to ramp him up a little bit with the training staff. So maybe another week. You don't want to just throw him out there in joint practices on Tuesday and Wednesday. So maybe you ramp him up. You're obviously not going to play him next week. Maybe for that third week, you get Andrew Thomas back to practice. We'll see. Let's see what happens. But I think things I've heard about Andrew Thomas is that things are still going in the right direction. Let's see. Turbo Miller, mentioned him before. I thought the burst he showed getting to the corner, he showed a little bit more seasoning as a running back today, and I thought that was good. They really rode him. He got a lot of reps, especially with Cam Scadaboo still not back on the field. That could happen this week with Cam Scadaboo. He was one of the players that did not come. Anybody who had some sort of injury and missed practice or was held out of practice on Thursday did not travel with the team. Malik Neighbors, that's not an injury. That's essentially just trying to take care of him and be smart with Malik Neighbors. Dexter Lawrence did not travel. Then you've got the corners, Corey Black, Cordell Flott, and Trey Hawkins. None of those guys came. Jalen Hyatt and Darius Slayton were not here. I think Slayton's closer. The Hyatt came as a little bit of a surprise. I thought he was going to be ready to make a move today, and he was not available, not on the trip. So we'll have to dig into that more this week and find out what the situation is with Jalen Hyatt. And, of course, Evan Neal, a big-time missed opportunity for Evan Neal. On the eve of finally getting in games, and he probably would have gotten a ton of reps today at guard, he probably would have done what Bowe did, flipping back and forth between the left guard and right guard. Evan Neal got banged up in practice on Wednesday. Thursday, he did not practice, worked with the trainers, and then was not available today. So, Brian Dable made a point after practice, after the game today. It wasn't necessarily anything about specific players, but he did say we are going to play in the preseason. And that's a difference. That's a change between what Dable has done. He's been accused of running, a country club, quote unquote, atmosphere in the preseason. I think coaches are damned if they do and damned if they don't. The Giants have been in the league leaders in injuries for a decade, and even going back to when Tom Coughlin was still here. So they're constantly trying to strike the balance between risk and reward. But Dable played his starters today, and I think he may play him again next weekend against the Jets in the game. I mean, we know we're going to see them in the joint practices. And then against the Patriots, we may see them in the preseason finale. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. One other guy I wanted to shout out, and I thought it was good for him, and that's another rookie, Thomas Fidone, tight end from Nebraska. Early on in this game, in the second quarter, Fidone got called for a false start, and he was taken off the field because the Giants have talked a lot about these pre-snap penalties in training camp. Can't happen. Fidone jumped, gets taken off the field. I think when you talk about in the second half, Fidone comes back and makes two catches in traffic. One was a 2-point conversion from Jameis Winston, and then another nice catch in traffic to convert and move the sticks from Tommy DeVito. It's a good step forward for Fidone to have what had happened early on and then to come back. He's missed some time in camp too, but it'll be interesting to see him as he progresses now, if he can stay healthy. Does he become more and more of a focal point in the offense? He has the athletic gifts. You can see that on the field. But let's see if he can stay healthy and kind of make this a true competition in the tight end room with Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger, Dulcich, Chris Manhertz, and then obviously you got the rookie in Terry, and then you have Fedone. So that's where we're at. I thought Tyrone Tracy looked good in limited opportunities, put another ball on the ground. I'm sure he's not going to be happy about that. It was out of bounds, so we'll see if that was actually his knee down, if he was down before. I have to see replays on that. But obviously they were feeding Tracy the ball a lot on that first drive. And that's pretty much where we're at here in Buffalo. Setting the stage for this week. Giants have their meetings tomorrow, then the players are off on Monday, and then it's Tuesday and Wednesday, joint practices, Giants and Jets. First at Florham Park, then in East Rutherford on Wednesday, open to fans. I know it's been sold out, so we'll see what that crowd looks like on Wednesday in East Rutherford. Giants went last year, and Aaron Rodgers had their way with this defense last year. The Jets did down in Florham Park. So it'll be interesting to see what the Jets can do against this Giants defense this time around. And that about wraps it up here from Orchard Park. Again, 34-25. The Giants beat the Bills, and it's going to be known as the Jackson Dart Day. You know, Russell Wilson said afterwards, I remember my first touchdown pass. He talked about it earlier this week on Wednesday, and now Jackson Dart. I hope Jackson has seen the pass by now, but I'm sure he'll see it at some point. So again, thanks to Paul Wood for leaving a party and producing this episode. We're going to have our 150th coming up soon. We're working on some things to get some guests. Maybe this week we'll have some Giants guests on here after the joint practice on Wednesday. We're still working on that, so I would stay tuned and see what happens. But for Paul Wood, I'm Art Stapleton. Make sure you read everything we got on NorthJersey.com and in the print editions of the Record. We're all in. We're here in Buffalo, signing off. We appreciate you being all in every single show. So we'll catch you next time this week. Joint practices with the Jets should be fun.